Hi, welcome back. Welcome back to Summer Series 2.0 in partnership with H&H. We are on day 19, I believe, of the Summer Series, and I am loving it. I know I say this every day, but I am loving all the content every day. You've got me again. I'm Ruth Dance from the Inspiring Workplaces team. It's summer. It's Friday. In fact, my eldest son, he's just come home from school, telling me all about the very British lunch he had today of fish and chips, and he loves fish and chip Fridays. So if anyone else is having fish and chips on a Friday, then we're with you here at Family Dance at Team Inspiring Workplaces. And I hope you've all got really exciting weekends planned ahead. I'm really excited for our weekend. We're actually going to get to see some family for the first time in maybe 2 years. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And what a way to lead us into the weekend than with an amazing case study. And the case study is based here in the UK, where I am today as well. And I'm really, really excited to introduce you to Miranda Sykes, who is from the NHS Business Services Authority. And for those of you that don't know who or what the NHS is, it was one of the first universal healthcare systems in the world. It was 72 years old now. I think Miranda may correct me on this when she comes on stage. There are approximately 1.4 million employees that work for the NHS. It's the National Health Service in the UK. And they treat over, and this is a staggering statistic, 1 million people or patients every single day. And today's case study comes from the Business Services Authority division as part of the NHS. And this is how they inspired their colleagues to stay connected and stay involved, particularly during the pandemic. It was really important to them that their people remained the number one priority, and that everybody was provided with the opportunities to influence how they felt they wanted to stay connected, stay well, and also stay safe. So Miranda's going to talk us through the case study and how they did that in that area of their business and the impact that had on employee engagement, but also how it enabled them to support the wider NHS in their response to fighting COVID-19. I'm also really excited that they're actually a finalist in the Inspiring Workplaces Awards this year too. So I'll stop talking and bring Miranda onto the stage. Hi, Miranda. Welcome.
Hi, Ruth. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Ruth. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm not sure if I got all my statistics right. That was some good old Googling from me. I'm sure you'll help us, and for any of our global audience, give us more of a context into the NHS. But anyone that's based in the UK will, probably not go a week without interacting with your business. So I'm really excited to hear this case study and to hear more about what you're going to be talking about. No pressure. So you're gonna be amazing, and you're gonna share some slides as well. So I'll bring those up onto the screen, and I'll hand over to you, Miranda, and just bring me back on when you're ready for me.
Will do, Ruth. Thank you. So okay. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all well. I'm going to talk to you this afternoon about inspiring colleagues to stay connected and to stay involved. As Ruth said, my name's Miranda Sykes, and I'm the Head of Communications and Marketing at the NHS Business Services Authority. So I'll just give you an overview in terms of what I'm going to talk with you about today. So I just really wanted to put it into context, because the National Health Service is a massive organisation and is actually made up of a number of different organisations as well. So I wanted just to first of all outline who we are and how we play our part in that big vehicle that is the NHS. I wanted to talk about our vision for colleague engagement. I wanted to talk through the impact of the pandemic as well and how we involved our colleagues, and then to touch on the results that came about because of that, and then also our plans for the future. So a bit of an introduction to the NHS BSA, so who we are and what do we do? Well, we're an arm's length body of the Department of Health and Social Care, and we're a national NHS organisation in our own right, and we employ around 3,500 people. We manage £35 billion of NHS spend annually, and that's over 25% of the annual NHS budget. Our purpose is to be a catalyst for better health, which means we work in collaboration with our stakeholders, customers and partners across the system with the intention to innovate, try new things and explore different ways of working. We drive efficiency for the taxpayer and we help people to live longer and healthier lives. So we describe ourselves as NHS workforce specialists. This means we provide workforce platforms and services to the NHS to best support its people. So, for example, we support employees through their career journey with NHS jobs. We manage the NHS electronic staff record. We administer the NHS pension scheme, which is the biggest in Europe. And we also have a HR shared services team. We're also NHS pharmacy and dentistry services experts. So we process over 1 billion prescription items every year and 43.6 million dental claims, making over £12 billion of accurate and timely payments to dentists and pharmacists for the services that they provide to patients and the public. During the pandemic, we've seen a significant shift to electronic prescriptions, which saves the NHS time and money. And we also provide a high-tech scanning service, which again saves NHS organisations money and vital office space as well. And we're customer experience professionals too. We support members of the public in gaining access to healthcare services and to help with health costs to which they're entitled. So, for example, we provide a range of exemption schemes, including maternity and low income. We provide free or reduced cost prescriptions or dentistry, and we also issue the new Global Health Insurance Card. We provide an exemption checking service to ensure that only those entitled to help with health costs receive them. And we've also taken over responsibility from the Department of Health and Social Care for a range of healthy food schemes, helping families on low incomes make healthier choices. Excuse me. So I just wanted to share a few figures really. In terms of the scale of what we do every year, you can see from this slide that we have a really wide reach and impact across the NHS as one of their key support services. I wanted to touch on our vision and values as well, because this is important when we talk about connecting staff to our organisation. So our vision is to be a delivery partner of choice for the health and care system. And our values are collaborative, adventurous, reliable and energetic. And hopefully you'll notice they do spell out the word care. And this is important as colleagues play these back to us in our feedback. Our values have been in place for around 3 years and that we developed with our staff for our staff. Our vision for colleague engagement. So our people is a strategic goal in our business strategy, and we describe it as being about creating a fantastic colleague experience where people can be their best with an eye to future needs and a great inclusive place to work. We have a measure of delivering great communications and engagement for our colleagues, so we're working towards an improvement in engagement across all 8 factors of engagement according to Best Companies, which is leadership, my company, my manager, personal growth, my team, well-being, fair deal and giving something back. And I'll touch a bit on those later on. Best Companies are the company we've been with for around 2 years now, and we use them to carry out our employee engagement survey. Our communications and marketing strategy outlines our plans, and it's one of our supporting strategies for the business strategy, and that's got a focus on internal communications and engagement to help people feel connected, connect colleagues to our leadership, making sure people have opportunities to feedback what they think about the business and be involved in decision making as well. We also want to be an employer of choice, attract and retain talent and be a great inclusive place to work. So that's a bit about us and what we do and where employee engagement sits within our organisation. So against that backdrop, I just wanted to share our experience of the coronavirus pandemic with you. So excuse me whilst I just grab a sip of water. Thank you. So right at the very beginning of the pandemic, we set 3 objectives, and our colleagues' safety was always the first priority, and that was repeated time and time again in our communications. Our second objective was to keep our business critical services functioning. So, for example, ensuring NHS colleagues and providers were paid in full and on time every month. And finally, we stood up around 50 new services in support of the national effort to support the fight against the pandemic. Around 3/4 of our staff were sent home immediately and actually still remain working at home. There were a number of challenges for everybody, really. So physical, in terms of new kits, new technology, a new working environment, different space, people suffering with isolation, and there's been limited opportunities for collaboration. Importantly, around 500 colleagues remained in our offices to carry out business critical activities whilst the workplace was changing around them. So this was things like additional cleaning, social distancing, one-way systems in place, and really making sure that we had a COVID secure building across all our sites. We quickly stood up a command structure. So we had a gold group and a tactical support group, and the introduction of the TSG, as I'll call it, was particularly important. That was chaired by our business continuity team, and it involved representatives from all areas of the business, including HR, wellbeing and inclusion, operational areas, unions, communications team, estates, health and safety, technology, finance and commercial, to collectively decision make, share information and discuss and agree the best course of action. I say communicate because we started with a broadcast model of communications, with email updates going out daily in the first stages of the pandemic, as it was important that colleagues understood what actions they needed to take to keep themselves safe. Although later on, it did turn to a true two-way model of engagement. So this slide is primarily about the broadcast communications we've done since March 2020, and I'll go into a bit more detail on the two-way engagement shortly. So the daily updates we had actually dropped to 3 times a week, and we've only just gone to once a week, which is based on recent colleague feedback from an internal communications and engagement survey that we've just done. The microsite that we developed contains email updates, FAQs, wellbeing advice. There's a calendar of regular interactive sessions for colleagues, and also the Q&A recordings. And we also introduced what we term local coronavirus communications to colleagues and suppliers. So this was when a colleague had tested positive and who was working in our buildings. So we issued information to colleagues and suppliers in the building, and that was with colleague permission and not identifying the colleagues involved. This was really important for us for transparency and reassurance. And we also introduced an out-of-hours rota for this early on for HR, business continuity, estates and communications. And that was so that we could contact trace early and take action as soon as possible. So, for example, we could stop people coming in if they needed to self-isolate. And it was also really helpful for things like cleaning, quarantining desks, etc. We developed a microsite for how the NHS BSA is supporting the national response to coronavirus, and that was on our external website, so that colleagues could see that what the business as a whole was doing to support the national effort and how their work helped and fit into that. And all our messaging was repeated in the Chief Executive's blog, and we developed a stay safe, stay well and stay connected strapline for him as a sign-off. There's a couple of other things that we did as well. We also put on free tea and coffee for colleagues working in our offices, just really to try and make things a bit easier for them. And then we've also supplied colleagues working at home with equipment they've needed, like laptops, monitors, desks, and also specialist equipment, for example, display screen equipment and chairs, etc. So these fortnightly live Q&A sessions really do mark the start of our two-way engagement during the pandemic. And they were set up for colleagues to ask any question that they wanted of our leadership team. This opened a direct line of communication between our leadership team and our colleagues to an extent that we've never seen before at the NHS BSA. Evaluation took place after each session, and that showed that overwhelmingly staff appreciated the leadership team answering questions honestly, and that they felt cared for and valued after the sessions. The visibility and integrity of the leadership team during these events has been a big factor in increasing engagement, as it's helped colleagues see the way different parts of the business fit together and also how their own contribution makes a difference. We've had an average attendance of around 600 people per session, with around 150 people watching the playbacks. And the events have evolved as well, so based on feedback from colleagues. We now start each session with an update from one of our directors, with a business update from their area. And again, that seems to be welcomed by viewers. I've got a slide now which just shows some of the comments, and that's from the staff evaluation following the Q&A sessions. And you'll see on a couple of comments there that our colleagues are playing our values back to us, which is fantastic to see. We also received some negative comments as well, so we've taken that feedback on board and we've adopted our approach. So there were comments like people felt questions were being repeated. So what we started to do was pointing people to links on our FAQ, section on our intranet site, and that made a positive difference. Future topics for the Q&A sessions are also based on staff suggestions. And we, as I've said, we evaluate each session, and we have an overall rating of 4.4 out of 5 overall. We ask colleagues how easy it is to watch, how likely people are to recommend the event and watch it in the future, and also what topics people would like to see covered. And on my next slide, we also managed to secure the attendance of the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Matt Hancock, and that was one of our virtual sessions in March this year, which saw viewing figures rocket to over 1,000. He spent around half an hour with our colleagues, thanking everyone for their efforts and taking questions on everything from vaccination certificates to ALB reviews to how the NHSBSA can do more to help support the health and care system in the future. We did have incredibly positive feedback from staff following this session, with people commenting that they could join in and have a say. It was really reassuring to hear from the Secretary of State and his views of the organisation, and it was good to see a politician giving us the thumbs up for all the work that we do. So moving on to the next slide, you'll see on this the key way in which we've involved our colleagues. There's a number of initiatives which I'll talk through on this slide, and the key thing about this has been really teamwork across the business to make these things happen. I really want to stress that it's not the communications team doing this in isolation. It's absolutely not that. It's about colleagues across the business coming together from different parts and working together to make everything that we've done happen. We set up We Care cafes for colleagues, which are run twice weekly and are themed based on colleague feedback and health and wellbeing trends. They're a safe space for colleagues to share their experiences. And this month, for example, with it being Pride Month, we've had a We Care cafe on what it means to be an ally. And we've also had a special cafe on the Windrush generation to mark National Windrush Day. As part of our wellbeing calendar, we've also run a series of awareness sessions, as you can see outlined in the slide above. The manager sessions have been particularly helpful in terms of colleagues inputting into our decision making, as these feed into the tactical support group, which I mentioned earlier. So this mechanism, and combined with the actual representation on TSG from the union's HR and operations, then allowed that particular group to make informed decisions based on feedback from colleagues. In addition to our existing wellbeing and inclusion networks, this year we've introduced lived experience networks for disability and neurodiversity, LGBT+, BAME and women. These allow colleagues to act as a support network for each other, be a critical friend of the NHSBSA, to identify issues and barriers in relation to policies, procedures and practices, promote learning and be visible role models across the NHSBSA. We also have a shadow board with members from each of our lived experience networks. So this meets the day before each main board to review and provide constructive challenge and feedback on agenda items. 2 members of the shadow board then attend the board meeting the following day, and they represent their shadow board colleagues. The Our Way Ahead programme is a programme looking at how we'll work longer term, and that's involved over 1,000 colleagues taking part in listening sessions and surveys. And colleagues across all parts of the business are continuing to have an input into the programme to involve organisational decision making and shape our future. I think there's about 70 colleagues involved in that at any one time from all different parts of the business. In terms of our internal communications and engagement survey, we knew we'd communicated at length with people, but we wanted to gain a deeper understanding of how people felt and what would be useful for them in the future. We also needed to know which parts of the organisation we weren't reaching and why. And so we're currently working through the analysis of that. And I don't say communications by committee lightly, because it is a difficult thing to do. But actually, communications by committee work to our advantage. And what I mean by that is where you have a lot of involvement from people around the table and you come together and you agree the communications. So in terms of our incident communications, our daily updates as they were, those were circulated to our head of HR, our head of business continuity, head of professional and clinical services, and our incident director for sign-off. So it worked for us because we had completely accurate and timely information, and we were all signed up to the messaging on that. So the results from October 2020, this is the key way really in which we've measured engagement across the NHS-BSA. So we conducted a full employee engagement survey with best companies, and we got a 73% response rate to that. So that's an incredible response rate. We had over 70 questions in that survey, including ones relating to leadership, management, team working and wellbeing. And we've seen, as you can see, significant improvement on our 2019 results with increased engagement across all 8 factors. We achieved an overall increase of 64.5 points in the Best Companies Index, leading to a 2-star accreditation, which we're really proud of because that means that our staff engagement is outstanding. Previously in 2019, we were a ones to watch, so our increase in staff engagement has far exceeded what we set out to achieve. Other measures of our engagement initiatives include surveys and focus groups on wellbeing and inclusion, internal comms and engagement, as well as numbers of attendees at events and feedback from colleagues on these. I'll just talk through some of our accreditations. So we actually made number 17 in the UK's 25 best big companies to work for this year, and that's reflected in the Sunday Times lists. We managed top 5 non-for-profit bodies, best organisations to work for, and we also made all of best companies, all 4 regional lists. We're 51st in the Stonewall Top 100 Employers, and we've also been awarded the gold standard by ENEI, which is the Employers Network for Equality and Inclusion, for our approach to diversity and inclusion, as well as the North East Better Health at Work ambassador status. I think what an engaged workforce means for us as an organisation. I think our increased visibility, particularly of the leadership team during the pandemic, has been a key driver in improving our engagement levels. People need to trust the leadership of an organisation to give them certainty during a crisis and keep them safe. Our approach has built trust and confidence in our leadership, and that's been reflected in our survey results. We've involved colleagues at all levels and provided opportunities for them to get actively involved and be part of leading the way as well. So it's not just about being actively involved, it's getting involved in the decision making. And by working closer with colleagues and providing opportunities for feedback, we've managed to spot any issues early on and then being able to take action to resolve them. We know that people who are fully engaged at work are more motivated and more committed and work with greater pride and purpose. We know colleagues understand more about how they make a valuable contribution to the NHS-BSA and how they are linked to our vision and values because they've told us. Importantly, having an engaged workforce means we've managed most of our normal business during the pandemic, and our people have been key in quickly standing up around 50 new services to support the national effort. Our care values have been repeated back to us in feedback, and colleagues have also commented that they have partners who work at different organisations or friends, and they don't have as many opportunities or as much support for their employer. And due to the supportive nature of our work, this has had a ripple effect on the wider NHS by freeing up their time, effort and resources, allowing frontline staff to do their critical work in delivering patient care. And in terms of what are the next steps and plans for the future for us, so we have just conducted, as I mentioned earlier, an internal comms and engagement survey to understand how useful people find communications, how well informed they feel, and what they want to see in the future. So I think I said we're in the process of analysing the results from that so that we can understand, and then also where we need to dig a little deeper and find out where we're not reaching people and why, and then run some focus groups so we can understand some of the barriers and hopefully try and remove some of those. I think undoubtedly pandemic has placed internal communications and engagement as a strategic function at the heart of the organisation, and we'll absolutely build on this reputation. A learning point for us is to absolutely build colleague involvement into all our key programmes, for example, our Way Ahead, as I've mentioned. And also we'll try new things based on feedback from the survey as to what colleagues want to see in the future. So that might involve new technologies like podcasts and things that we haven't tried out as an organisation before, but we're absolutely prepared to give it a go. So thank you very much for listening. I'll hand back to Ruth now. So thank you.
Miranda, wow. Thank you so much for sharing all the amazing work you've been doing. And I was going to say, like, congratulations, but your stats have done that for you, right? Like, to see those incredible stats and that increase in so many different areas, in every area, in a pandemic, for a business that was fighting that pandemic and supporting the people fighting that pandemic, is nothing short of incredible. Like, you would expect anyone, so if I was going to expect anyone, it would be the NHS, people that were fighting on the front line of COVID, to be in this kind of fight or flight mode, not really thinking about communication and engagement and D&I and everything else that goes with it, but just really trying to fight but you've just gone ahead and carried on and just kind of blown it out of the park. I'm just so impressed. So congratulations. And I'm not surprised you've got those accolades as well. I think sharing what you're doing and inspiring people is amazing, but for it to come from an organisation such as the NHS, which is publicly funded, some might argue underfunded organisation, who were fighting COVID, is just amazing. And that leads me on to the one question I've got for you, is the NHS is publicly funded, and therefore I can imagine, and you may tell me wrong, but I can imagine that budgets, when it comes to people stuff, such as comms and engagement and everything else, were probably little to none. Would that be a fair assumption? Like, you don't have these huge budgets, and you also have a huge workforce, as you've put. What advice would you give to anyone who thinks that they can't achieve those kind of accolades or awards, or because they don't have the money to do that?
I think, yeah, it's a good question, Ruth. I think, like, I can only speak for our organisation, really, not on behalf of the whole NHS, but yeah. I think we're quite lucky in our organisation, and I think it's about the commitment that the organisation gives to people and engagement, because people are what drives everything. We really look at the NHS BSA. We've got a fantastic set of people who work with us every single day in, day out, and have given their all over the last 14, 16 months, worked long hours, worked tirelessly to do their jobs so that we can support the front line doing their jobs, and that's been really important. So I think what I would say, it's about the focus that the organisation gives on its people. And as I think I mentioned in my presentation, we're really lucky in that we have a specific focus of our people in our business strategy. And we also recognise that how we deliver through our people is how we're successful as an organisation. So I think in terms of, I think I suppose a bit regardless of whether you have a budget, I think the importance that your organisation places on people, that's the key to being successful. And I think it's also about listening and working in collaboration, because you can't do it on your own. This has been an effort of 3,500 people. It's absolutely not one team. So
yeah, that was really evident. It wasn't like a top-down approach of the leadership did this and then the leadership did this and then look at our results. It was really evident that it was a collaboration and a listening piece, and they used the word involving our colleagues quite a lot. And I think that's where the results have shown, is doing it with people, and we're not doing it to anybody. You are involving everyone in everything, and then the results have spoken for themselves. You just proof that it works, which is amazing. So thank you so much for sharing the story. Whenever I've had to send a form to NHS Business Services Authority, you're up north from where I am. I'm in this very bottom of England. I always think of the amazing work that you and the team are doing. When I had my twins, I had to do my maternity exemption certificate, so I sent that up to you, and I almost wanted to put a little sticker on the envelope to say you're doing an amazing job. But thank you so much for sharing that story. And I'll just have a quick look if we've had anything. We've had a couple of questions come through, actually. I'm just going to quickly check them. Here we go. We've got a couple that have come through from Kevin. Have you learnt what develops effective listening skills? A broad question for you. Are you able to answer that briefly?
Yeah. So I think, Kevin, have I learned what develops effective listening skills? I think everybody is different as well. So in terms of what develops, I think we've done a lot of listening exercises across the business, and I think some people contribute in different ways. So I think it's about having different ways in which people can contribute, and then pulling all that together so that you can be most effective.
So having different routes to how you capture people's voices. Not just one way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Kevin's got another question for you. He's got a few questions, but we might have to take some of them offline. But he's got another question here for you. Are you an informal, family, carer, friendly employer, and what do you offer?
Yes, I think we do offer flexible working. I think the key words of the last sort of 14, 16 months have been flexible working. So obviously it depends on what the role is within the organisation, and what's required of you from that role. But yes, we do have family-friendly policies in the organisation, absolutely.
Fab. If we have any more questions for you, Miranda, we may contact you, we may include them in a blog, we may follow up. Hopefully we'll be able to present more case studies in our ebooks throughout the year. And again, congratulations on being a finalist for the Inspiring Workplaces Awards. So I've got everything crossed for you. I will hope to hear more of a case study again. But just congratulations on the incredible work you've done over the last year as well. I think it's amazing, and it's amazing to share that. So thank you, Kevin. I hope that answered some of your questions. If anyone else has questions, if you're watching this on demand, then post them in the comment section below where you're watching this right now. But from all of the team at Inspiring Workplaces, Miranda, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing the case study of the NHS Business Services Authority. We're really, really grateful. So it's bye for now.
Thanks, Ruth.
So on to Monday, not tomorrow, it's the weekend. As you all know what I'm doing at the weekend, it's not the summer series. So our next one, day 20, is on Monday. And we've got Steve from Pladis, who's going to be talking to us about the virtuous cycle of digital employee engagement. Same time, same place, different host on Monday. But I'll see you next week. And thank you again for watching the Summer Series 2.0. Bye.